sit down with my good friend and ultra marathon runner, black belt, David Thull. We're going to hit the record button on my podcast machine. 3, 2, 1. I'll get some intro music this time around.
There you go.
I have that intro music that you did for me.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I should have used that. I switch it up. So a student of mine did this track for me.
Who was it?
It's a good question. A former student. I can't even remember his name. Yeah. He is some kind of producer, music producer. So he did some tracks for the podcast.
That's cool.
I'll do some stuff for you. And I like this one. It's laid back. It's kind of got a smooth little beat to it. Yeah. But yeah, man, welcome back to the show again, David. This is part 2, by the way. So today's focus has been on a number of different topics, but right now we're going to stick to one specific topic, which a lot of students at the gym have been asking for, which is our take on the blue belt to purple belt journey in jiu-jitsu. Now, you're a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. I'm a black belt, been training for a lot of years. And I probably spent the majority of time as a blue belt. Is that true for you as well?
Yeah.
So the blue belt journey is a special one for me. And there's a lot of different schools out there may have a different take. And so just want anybody who's listening to this from another school, you really do got to talk to your instructor, your coach, your professor, and ask them what the expectations are, because the expectations, I think, would vary dramatically. I've actually have heard some coaches talk about how the blue belt to purple belt is a shorter journey, and then they keep them at a purple belt a little bit longer.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting, and I never really heard that before. And was listening to a coach, must have been on one of the social media platforms. So I did think that was interesting. And but for me, and I just feel like the blue belt is a very special place to be in jiu-jitsu. And I say that because you have to really love jiu-jitsu to make it from blue to purple. That's the way I look at it. And I really want to get your take on just the blue belt itself and what you should be focusing in on as a blue belt.
Yeah. I think it's the belt I was definitely at that one for the longest. And I think for me, it's the belt that you get the most, well, not the most growth, but you start to kind of develop your game, I think you're trying to develop your game as a white belt. I don't think you know enough to actually know what you're doing to develop it. And I think blue belt's kind of like where you're doing that. And then by the time you kind of figure it out, then you might be getting your purple belt. And I think the whole time during my blue belt journey, it was just trying to figure everything out. I have my blue belt relatively fast. So I think that might be why I get that, kind of version of it, is that it, I think I got my blue belt then it was like 6 or 9 months.
You did get it fast.
Yeah. Because I was going like every class plus open mat. Like, I don't think I missed a class the first year and a half or two. Like, I went to every class.
Yeah.
And but to me, the blue belt's always been that whole. I kind of look at a white belt. You're kind of learning letters, right? Blue belt, you're learning how to spell some words, make a few phrases, and then purple belt's like when you're giving like sentence structure.
Yeah. The way I see a purple belt is that you're advanced.
Yeah.
You should know a lot about the art of jiu-jitsu. And I like how you explained white belt is that you don't really know anything, just learning your letters, man. You're learning techniques and in some cases just trying to survive, depending on the school that you go to. I think we're pretty good at really easing people in. And just so if you are listening to this and you are thinking about training and you're considering schools in our area, Central Valley, 7th Generation Jiu Jitsu isn't just going to throw you in the fire like they did with Dave and I when we were
That's right.
white belts. I mean, we were just killing each other. It's a lot different at my gym, and so we try to meet you at the door wherever you are at physically. We'll figure out a good program for you, so that way we make it an enjoyable experience as opposed to just coming into the gym and just getting your ass beat, which I know a lot of schools probably still do.
Yep.
We don't do that at 7th Generation Jiu Jitsu. But yeah, that white belt period is that's a tough one too. I earned my blue belt in about 12 months, so a little bit longer than you. I always feel like the white to blue, as long as you're consistent, it should take you anywhere from 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't think that should be a belt that you're really hanging out, because to me that's saying that white belt's the first belt. If you even want to, it's the first one that you get promoted from. But to keep someone on a white belt for a long time, when someone walks in, they put on a white belt.
Right.
So it's like you have someone who's a white belt for 3 years.
It makes zero sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw like 20 stripes on them, maybe.
Yeah. So once you get in the 4, and there's, just start adding more from there. Yeah. No, to me, it doesn't make any sense to keep somebody at a white belt for any longer than 12 to 18 months, unless they're a complete flake and they come in.
Yeah, they're not showing up.
And they spend 3 months on the mat doing well, and then they disappear for 6. Well, then, of course, yeah. And I've always promoted fairly quickly from white belt to blue if you are consistent and you're showing progress, you're getting better. But then once you get to blue belt, I always tell, whenever I promote somebody, always make some kind of joke like, you better enjoy this one.
Yeah.
Because this very well could be your last belt.
Yeah, the dropout rate for blue belt's super high.
Super high. I never say that to someone while they get promoted, but I'm thinking that in my head, but I do tell them, enjoy it, because it's going to be a while before you get your next belt. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, this may in fact be your only promotion that you get where you actually get a new belt, because so many people decide to move on after the blue belt. But yeah, the blue belt journey is just going to take a little bit longer, because at least for me, I just want my students, once they get to a purple belt, is to have a really great game that everybody knows, when I roll with this person here, this is what you got to watch out for. They got an outstanding guard, or their guard passing is just incredible, or something about them that says their jiu-jitsu is unique. And I just think from white belt to blue, you're just learning, like you said, letters. You're just learning a bunch of techniques. You're getting the foundational skills that everybody should be getting during that journey to blue belt. You should be able to defend yourself. Definitely, probably good solid training for 8 months to a year. I would say you could probably smash on just about anybody out there, as long as they don't have any training. But when you're talking about a purple belt, you got to know just about every aspect of jiu-jitsu at least a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like the whole, to me, once you get your purple, you just have to hold on to get the black. If you make it that far, you're not that far from I don't want to say the goal, but from getting, through the cycle, if you will.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you get a purple belt and you don't get a black belt, something went wrong.
Yeah.
Something went seriously, especially today. And that's another thing too. I have expectations. If you get a purple belt at 7th Generation Jiu Jitsu, my expectation is that you're going to stick it out to black.
Yeah. You're
going to stick it out with us unless, something dramatic happens, obviously, you move away. I mean, you absolutely can't train. You get a serious injury. I don't know, you break your neck. I mean, obviously things can happen. Anything can happen. But I do have expectations for my purples, is that I really want them to stick it out all the way to black belt, because there'd just be no reason to quit after getting your purple. At least that's the way I see it. And I really do look at that belt as a very special belt. Of all the belts I ever got, that purple belt meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, Dave, but when I first started training, I never thought I would be a black belt, number one.
Yeah,
Never thought that was possible. And I remember thinking if I could just get to purple, that'd be the greatest thing ever.
right. I mean, I remember even though I got my blue belt relatively fast, just thought, oh, this is probably like it, you know.
Yeah.
If,
And
if I,
maybe you can
if I,
explain to people who are listening to this, because you and I are pretty old school. We go way, way back. Been training for over 20 years. Tell them how it used to be, how hard it was to get a
yeah,
purple or a brown, much less a black.
yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't even really have too many people in town, that had purple belt. So it just seemed like it was unattainable. Uh, I think the gap at that time was it was so huge. You didn't have anyone to kind of compare against as much. So you didn't have a school where you had like maybe a brown belt, even black belts in school. You're going against people who were pretty good, but they were blue belts also. So it was almost one of those like, well, if this guy's this good and he's still a blue, I can't match his level yet. Like, what am I even doing? Thinking about getting a purple belt? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. No, I remember being a blue belt, getting mopped up by other blue belts who were nowhere close to getting a purple belt.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a different time. It was, I think, a good time as well, because you had to love training jiu-jitsu back in those days. And, now we have these factories, these academies are now they're money-making um, institutions or academies, whatever you want to call them. And it's no disrespect to anybody who's looking to make money out there. We're lucky enough that the gym that's not the goal of the gym.
Right.
Maybe it should be, I don't know, but it's not the goal. It's not the goal. It was never the goal. The point of the gym was never to make money. The goal of the gym was to train jujitsu and to
Right.
have fun and to help people and to use it as a tool to give back. And it's not about getting people in, getting them to stay by giving them an incentive to get the belt.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you have these expectations that you're going to be given something that you didn't earn, that doesn't work at Seventh Generation.
Yeah. You definitely need to put the work in. There's some gyms that I kind of see some merit to, where they keep track of how many classes you have attended. You have to attend X amount of classes to get a belt, which I get it and I don't at the same time. It's kind of one of those like double-edged swords. It's like, well, yeah, because technically if someone just shows up to X amount of classes, hopefully they did learn enough to get to where they need to be. So I totally see where that makes sense too, but we're also assuming that everyone learns at a linear rate, like
Yeah.
you might show up for 20 days in a row and I might show up for 20 days in a row. There might be certain things that you learn way better than I do. And there might be, things that I just couldn't grasp, or you understand certain things a certain way and I understand a different part of the move, but that doesn't mean that we are going to both have the same amount of knowledge at the end of those days.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Everybody's different. Everybody progresses differently. Some people have maybe some prior experience and they're just better at a certain area of jiu-jitsu, and they don't train maybe as often, but they're still maybe a little bit more athletic, and because they have that athleticism and strength, maybe they do better on the mat during sparring sessions. But the person who is really technical, and maybe they don't beat everybody on the mat, but they have really great technical skills. They're helping people out at the gym, and they're very, very consistent. They could actually progress a little faster.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially, you get people who like the kids class, I think is a great example, right? You get some individuals who volunteer to help teach the kids class. And it's like, okay, and I always told people, if you have the opportunity, definitely, ask about doing it and helping out. And it's not that you're going to get promoted faster because you're teaching the class. It's that teaching the class is going to help you get better, because now you're having to actually really analyze the move. Can I explain it to this person correctly? I think that's where, helping out in the gym in that aspect, and, just trying to teach more, you really figure. I remember the first time I had to teach a class is like, man, do I fully understand this in a way that I could communicate it to somebody else and have it make sense? Can I communicate it to 20 people and have it make sense? It's one thing when it's one-on-one too. It's one thing when there's like 15 to 20 to 35 people watching. Like, I got to figure out a way to say this so that the group I'm in is able to take in what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, you bring up such a great point. And I think even at our gym, it's even more important for our students to understand is that, we do have expectations that once you do become a purple belt, that you should be able to teach jujitsu a little bit. I don't want just somebody who's good at jujitsu, just good at smashing on everybody. I do want you to be well-rounded, and I want you to be able to look at these foundational techniques. By the time you're a purple belt, you should be able to help everybody else who's coming up as a blue belt find their way. And that's a big part of what I try to push at the gym. So it's not simply about being the best or not getting tapped out. That's definitely a part of it. I mean, by all means, like, I'm never going to hold anybody back. I'm not going to hold anybody back. If you've earned it, you've earned it, and you're going to get promoted. Nevertheless, there's a lot of different factors that go into somebody earning that purple belt. And for me, it's, do you have that knowledge of all the different positions? You don't have to know everything, because that's not even possible, first of all. I feel like I've learned more as a black belt about jiu-jitsu than I've learned in my entire time all the way up to black belt.
I totally agree with that.
And that comes from teaching.
Yeah.
Because I didn't teach during those other belts very often, but as a black belt, all the years of teaching now, man, it's just like exposed me to so much more jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Well, I think, I've been in, I guess, kind of lucky circumstances a lot where I started teaching as a blue belt, but still, when I got my black belt, like, it was one of those like, oh, I didn't get it. I remember hearing like, oh, when you get your black belt, that's like when you really start to kind of start your journey. And, not that I was under the impression that I knew everything or it was gonna be done, but it was kind of one of those like, well, I wonder what that's going to mean when I get mine. And I feel like, especially in the last maybe 3 years, the more that I started doing private lessons with some of the guys, where it was like, okay, like, where they were wanting like very specific, micro answers to like, how can we go from here to there? Right. And really having to break it down to like, okay, like, why are we doing this and that? And it's funny because there's 3 or 4 guys that I do private lessons with quite often, and there's times where our lessons we don't even like really get on the mat. We're like just sitting on the bench just talking.
Yeah.
And no actual physical technique is taking place, no sparring or anything, and it's just like kind of working with them mainly on ideas and like almost like a philosophy. I'm like, well, this is what works for me, what can work for you, and what has been working.
Yeah. There's a lot of theory that should be going on from that blue belt to purple belt, looking at the theory behind whatever techniques you're trying to work on, whether it's De La Hiva, whether it's your half guard, whatever guard you're trying to improve upon. And I think that's something that has changed a lot since I started jiu-jitsu and now being a black belt. I think more about the theory and just talking more about jiu-jitsu, working out problems through dialogue as opposed to just trying to kind of figure out stuff on my own. And I think that's an important part of one's growth, is talking about techniques maybe you're not very good at, things that are problematic in your game. I think Ernesto, like the conversations I've had with him about collar sleeve, because I like collar sleeve. So we'll just sit and talk about it. Yeah. I'll just tell him, this is what I like to do when I find myself in these predicaments, because people are going to start to figure out your game. They're going to start to figure out what you're doing. And then from there, you got to figure out, how am I going to counter the counter? And a lot of that just comes through dialoguing with somebody. It's like, hey man, I'm having this issue. Like, can you help me out with it? What do you think about it?
Right.
Man, that's tremendously helpful.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think helped me out, and I tell my students all the time, like, especially during open mat sessions, Randy and I would get together once or twice a week, and we would just we'd roll for an hour, like an hour straight, but we wouldn't really. It was almost like a catch and release, right? Like he might get a choke, and then as soon as he knew he had it,
Yeah.
he'd just let go. We keep rolling. I get a submission, I just let go. But then when we were in positions that, were kind of it was great because you could kind of drop your ego, right? It's not like, oh man, this guy tapped me out like 20 times and whatever. Because we're doing more like kind of catch and release kind of thing. But sometimes we would get in a position, it was like, okay, I think there's a submission here. So then we would stop and actually like not break, that our position, but we would, from either being in half guard or in guard, and it's kind of like, hey, like, what do you think I could do from, like, we would kind of talk out, scenarios and stuff like that. Like, hey, like I'm trying to pass this way, but what do you think if I went that way instead? Like, do you feel pressure here or there? Can I be swept? Getting those sessions in with him were very beneficial because we got to just kind of explore. Like, okay, hey, I'm at the bottom of this. Can I get to that position? Like, what would you do? What's another way that we could do it as opposed to what we normally do?
I think having a partner like that it's important too, to somebody that you can, like I said, completely shed your ego and just say, hey, I'm having issues with this, or let's get a roll in, see where I'm having trouble, hit the timeout button, and then talk about it. Well, here, this is what I would try. Or when you're doing this frustrates me. So man, you should continue maybe to do that. Having somebody along to work with like that is I think a great strategy. I know Steve, he used to help me out a lot, especially whenever I would do a tournament, and then I would kind of go over some stuff with him that wasn't working, and then he would troubleshoot with me. Well, here's one of the reasons why I think maybe you should try this instead. And then he would go through the footage as well, and just to see how he could help me improve my game. And he would always ask like, hey, well, what can I do to help you out? What is there something you want to go over? And it was always beneficial having that, having a good training partner where you can, talk about the difficulties that you have. And I would suggest everybody who's training, again, the whole point of blue belt to purple, not the whole point, but a big part of it is getting better at jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
Right? You have to improve your game, not comparing you to somebody else, comparing you. It's a challenge that you have with yourself, not with other people at the gym, you're not competing against your training partners. You're just looking to get better at jiu-jitsu. And so in order to do that, I think having a partner, a training partner, or maybe a couple of training partners, they're going to help you achieve that goal. Because jiu-jitsu very much is an individualistic sport in the sense that when you shake hands and you're sparring, you're all on your own. However, people forget all the work that goes into that. You need training partners.
Yeah. Without a training partner, you can't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, if you're using a pillow, or I don't know, wrestling with your dog.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, you may see some improvements, but once you go and slap fists, bump fists, slap hands, bump fists with another person and go after it, man, it's a whole nother ball game there.
Yeah. One kind of thing that I try to, I think, kind of hone in on too, in the warning class too, is that, to me, that kind of blue to purple, when you're ready for your purple, you shouldn't have to, again, it isn't about like, oh, I haven't been tapped in like X amount of time, or I could tap this person out. I've seen people who I could tap get promoted before me. I've seen people that could tap me get promoted after me, because I think it's not you check all these boxes and that's where you're getting the promotion from, but one thing that I try to stress is that they shouldn't have to, like, if you're a blue belt and you're just like literally manhandling people who just got their blue belt or have their white belt, like, why? Why aren't you using better technique? It's nice that you learn this whole, complicated library of moves that they don't know yet. So that's what you're catching them in. But to me, like, if you're frustrating them with like basic stuff, like cross collar choke, like, man, that to me, that almost says more than anything when you're just frustrating someone with just like clean technique that they probably learned their first week or two in class. That's kind of what I'm looking at, because when you're able to pull off the basic quote unquote moves, if you get those nailed down, then yeah, all the other stuff is fun too, but you should be able to just, frustrate them with basics.
Yeah. And if your whole intention is simply not to get tapped or to tap other people out, if that will actually, in my opinion, I want to get your take on it, but in my view, that's going to slow down your progress.
Yeah.
Because you're not putting yourself in positions where people can attack you. And so when you do go against somebody who's better than you, and they put you in that situation, you're not going to have a way out.
Right.
So to me, I feel like those individuals who are always trying to get the tap, they're always trying to win, even though you don't win anything. There's no medals for doing well through our sparring sessions.
I was jokingly going to make one up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Maybe give it out.
Get a
When
medal.
I get that one guy in class, like at the end, hey, here you go. Here's your.
Maybe we should get some medals and be like, all right, you won. Here's your medal for the day you won today's sparring session.
Yeah.
But I think it slows down your progress. So what do you think?
No, I totally agree with that. I'm joking with the class. It's like, do you want me to just go 100% on you guys every time, or do you want me to let you work? You're not going to learn anything if I'm just like, time to get my taps in today, and let's see what moves I can pull off. I constantly give up my back and work from bad positions, and you have to, because if it's I feel like there's a line, right? Like if there's a tournament coming up, then I'm obviously probably not going to do as much, because I don't want that to become my muscle memory of like, well, I'm just going to like give you the worst position that I can be in automatically, because that's what I'm used to doing.
Right.
But so I always kind of tell people, be conscious of that too, because how you train is going to be how you fight. So be conscious that is why you're doing it, and it just doesn't become a habit out of habit. But if you're not used to fighting out of those bad positions, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And to me, that's the best way to do that too, is with the lower belts. So if you have a white belt, like, give him your back. You don't need to heel hook the guy and break his knee. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that should be the moment that, you're kind of helping them, because you're purposely putting yourself in a bad position, and you can work out of you should, I feel like, be able to confidently, without using strength or anything like that, using clean technique to get out. And you should be able to do it slow and in control. And to me, like, when I see that, that's the okay, that's a blue belt who's getting ready for their purple.
Yeah. And then if you do get caught, let's just say, okay, you put yourself in a bad situation because you're wanting to work on getting out of, say, the back take. So somebody jumps on your back, and let's just say, man, they catch you in a choke.
Man,
they bow and arrow choke. Bow and arrow choke you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well.
JJ has multiple times from like, man, this guy, like, let him get it. They don't let him get it. He got it.
He got it. Yeah. And man, I don't understand the ego that some people have. I've had students tell me, well, I haven't been tapped out in this long. And I'm like thinking to myself, well, then you're probably just playing it safe, and you're probably not really exposing yourself to any kind of risk, which is probably slowing down your jiu-jitsu, your progress, your ability to get better. And at the end of the day, again, this is just me, I'm not speaking for any other schools, but to get a purple belt, the expectation is that you're getting better at jiu-jitsu, that your jiu-jitsu is improving. It's not about not getting tapped out. It's not about tapping people out. That is a part of it, no doubt about it. Again, if somebody comes in and they smoke everybody, and they're working on different parts of their game, and they're letting people from lower belts take their back, or pass the guard, so that the way they can work on their defenses and their guard retention, you're going to get promoted.
Yeah.
You are going to get promoted. And if you are competing on top of that, you're going to get promoted probably a little faster. But I think what a lot of people are just expecting is just like, well, I've been here for X amount of time, I should at some point be getting promoted. And I don't have that. I don't have that outlook.
Right.
Like, just because you got your blue belt in 2020, now that's 2024, middle of the year, doesn't mean that, okay, by the 5th year, I should have my purple. Well, what happened during that time?
Yeah.
From 2020 to 2024, are you consistent? Are you competing? There's other factors involved. Are you helping out, teaching? It's not just time. And I had a student come to me, took some time off, over a year off, and one of my blue belts, and had said, well, I have an opportunity to, to go to some other schools and train. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, cool. Everybody has an opportunity to go anywhere. If I want to, I could close a gym and I could go train somewhere else if I want to
exactly.
too. Like, it was free country. You do whatever you want to do. And he's like, well, I talked to somebody, said that I would get my purple belt in 6 months. And I'm like, well, you're not going to get your purple belt in 6 months here. You've been a blue belt this person has been a blue belt for a while, but they took over a year off. And this is just me. This is just me. Again, I'm not trying to say I speak for anybody else, but I just speak for me and the gym, is that if you take that much time off, it's almost like hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you?
I mean, same thing. Like when I've had to take time off, that's something that Steve and I used to talk about. Like, man, and sometimes it was that I was focusing on a particular race that I had coming up, where I'd still come in to jiu-jitsu, but it wasn't as often, or if I did have to take time off for whatever reason, there always was that conversation like, oh, hey, you haven't been kind of consistent this long, so we're kind of starting this back up. I need to make sure that you're here. He would make me commit, like, okay, I need to know that you've been coming in once every other week or maybe once a month. I need 2 consistent days a week out of you before we even start getting serious about where you're going right now. I just need, a lot of it, that is what it is, just the consistency. And just, I think, showing that you're committed to it, obviously, and with consistency shows commitment.
Yeah. So I got my purple belt from Clever after, I think, 5 years as a blue, maybe a little bit longer. And then from purple belt, man, I was on a roll. I was competing a lot. I was teaching classes. I was doing so much at the gym. I ended up getting my brown belt within, I think, 18 months.
Oh, wow.
18-month period from purple to brown.
Yeah.
On my way to black belt.
Yeah.
Got injured. Hurt my shoulder. Couldn't train. I ended up, that was around the time of my divorce. I took on a second job. I was training like once a week. And I hurt my shoulder, couldn't train at all.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, when I came back and I was like, man, what do I got to do? He told me what I had to do. He's like, dude, you're starting over, man. He's like, it's just treat it as you just got your brown.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. I had my brown for X amount of time. I had to start over, and it took me longer. I spent a lot of time as a brown belt, and that was not the expectation. The expectation was, well, from about a year and a half, if I'm as consistent from purple to brown, I'm going to get my black. But it ended up taking me twice as long to get to black belt because I was inconsistent. I had to work. I couldn't come as often, and then I got injured. So when I did come back, and again, it's something I did learn from Steve. And you know what? In the end, it meant so much more to me to get that black belt because I had to overcome so much to get it. And I always tell people that don't get so fixated on the fucking belt, man.
Yeah. And I feel like it might be easy for me to say now that I do have a black belt. I kind of wish we didn't have belts at times.
Yeah.
Like I think people get so fixated on it. It's like, well, you were perfectly fine wearing a white belt when you started. Like, just, I don't know. It's one of those where I understand the importance of it, but at the same time, I kind of wish that it wasn't there.
Well, here's the deal on that, Chet. I mean, when you and I started, there wasn't a lot of people doing jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah. So everybody was around the same time. And I would say that was a great time because the belt didn't fucking matter as much.
Right.
Because you could be a blue belt and be really freaking good, man, and just be smashing on everybody. And it was almost like the belts really didn't matter. What mattered was the mat and how good you were or how good you weren't. And now, with so many kids being brought up by their parents training jujitsu, you have these 16-year-old blue belts that are wrecking black belts.
Yeah.
I was watching these juvenile blue belts in San Jose at an IBJJF tournament. They are rolling like black belts.
Yeah. Because they've been training like
because they've been
10 to 15 years already.
Yeah, they're 16. They've been trained since they were 5.
Yeah.
11 years of training. They're already black belts.
Yeah.
They already train like black belts. And these kids that are now like 17, 18, 19, 20, they're just mopping up everybody. And so you can't really compare. You have to be careful too. You can't really compare that kind of blue belt who's been training for 11, 12 years since they were 5 to somebody who walks in the gym when they're 29, 30. It's just a different journey.
Yeah.
It's a completely different journey.
Well, even just like with belt promotions in general, like I try to explain a little bit sometimes here and there about like the expectations will vary from person to person too, as to what that person is doing. Like you get someone who's competing, right? To me, that person's probably going to get promoted faster if they're winning all the time, because
yes,
it's not, because, okay, so like when I did judo, the way that it kind of went back then was, okay, you compete so many times. If you win so many tournaments, you get promoted. Because why do we want to keep you at that level when you beat everyone at that level? You need to go to the next one. So you can see, some people who have their purple brown belt who maybe they're not as technically efficient. Maybe they can't even submit everyone in class, but they understand that tournament game so nailed down that like, why would you keep them where they are? They need to get promoted so that, if that person's goal is competing, why you don't want to sandbag too. You don't want to be that person like, oh yeah, that guy's been wrecking the blue belt division for, 2 years now, or, with judo, I remember it was like, if you won 3 or 4 tournaments, they promoted you, to whatever belt or degree. And I think that that's what some people who see maybe like someone get promoted to purple belt, before they feel like they should have, or, anything like that. It's like, well, yeah, but look at what this person's doing with it. And it's not going to be fundamental for them to stay at that spot. They do need to actually get promoted so that they could have more competition to grow even better.
I think that's such a great point you're bringing up, because there's different types of jiu-jitsu practitioners. So you're talking about the competitor.
Yeah.
The competitor who's winning tournaments, and that's what their goal is, to win tournaments and to grow as a competitor. Then they're going to get, if they're winning, you promote them to the next stage.
Yeah.
Right. They win there. Well, then you promote them to the next, if that's your thing, competition. Now, if you're just an everyday practitioner, the journey's a lot different.
Totally. Yeah.
It's completely different. And that's mostly what we have at our gym. Most of our people, and at most gyms, this is the case. And this is what, I don't know how, there's probably some research on it, but I think most gyms, it's like around 3-4% of the clientele are competitors.
Right.
Everybody else is doing jiu-jitsu for fun. And that's what I always tell people. When you're a blue belt, just have fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy. This is where you get to fall in love with jiu-jitsu for real, because you know the foundational techniques. You can defend yourself in class now. You're not just getting smashed on by everybody. The new people who come in, you're going to be able to wreck them. So you're able to have that confidence in knowing that, man, when I'm on the street, I can defend myself. I can defend my family. In the gym, I'm going to do pretty good. You should be training because you love it and you enjoy it, and you gain all these amazing benefits from it: good health, friendship, fellowship. The love of jiu-jitsu should really be a big part. To me, the blue belt to purple is where you just love to train, and you're coming in the gym not because I'm going to get a stripe, I'm going to get promoted. Well, we're going to promote you. We don't hold nobody back, man. We're going to get you promoted. Trust me. If you earn it, you're going to get promoted. Just come to the gym because that's where you want to be, because you're going to get all these amazing benefits from it. Your competitor, different story. You're wrecking everybody as a blue belt. Well, then it's time to go to purple.
Yep.
You start wrecking everybody as purple, man, it's time for brown.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like with you and I, we did competitions, and that's kind of how that was a part of our program of getting promoted, because Steve was more, he wanted us to compete.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He wanted us to put our name in the hat and get out there and compete. And I remember my competition as a brown belt, he's like, dude, you have to go out there and compete. And I won matches as a brown, and I lost matches as a brown.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, you're in the mix. You're able to hold your own against brown belts. He's like, it's time now.
And brown belts that you don't know.
Brown belts that we don't know.
Yeah. You don't know what to expect.
And he's like, yeah, now it's time, bro. It's on to black.
Yeah.
And that was that transition. That was to black belt. But for blue belt, man, it's just about, like you said, I like what you said about just knowing that you have a game. You have a particular style that you've really gotten good at. And then you know a little bit about everything. You know a little bit about De La Riva. You know a little bit about X-Guard. You should be pretty well-rounded, I think, as a purple belt as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of that too, like even the stuff that you're not good at, you know, being able to defend. And you know, like one of those things, like I remember when X-Guard, when people first started doing that, you know, and then that's like a position that I'm not super good at myself, so I don't particularly do. And so at first it was like, okay, what can I do to like prevent this? So anytime I saw someone starting to set it up, I'd block it right away. Like, okay, we're not even going to let them get to it. But then it became the point to like, okay, I'm getting really good at blocking it, but what if I get someone who's really good at getting it in there still? So I think to me, one of those like kind of like mental things that you have to work on that's going to separate the blue belt and the blue belt who's getting ready to get the purple belt, that they're going to let themselves get deeper in that bad situation. Like it's one thing that if there's a particular move on, oh man, like I'm great at blocking this. Okay, well, what do you do when they sneak in a little bit further? Like, are you allowing that person to actually get you into X-Guard? Like, you know, how do you escape from there? So it's one thing to be good at, like, I stopped the first plan, but what if it, you know, proceeds to that? And that has to do, like, I feel a lot with letting go of that ego and just letting someone get the better position, right? Because now I'm either going to get caught and I tap, or I'm going to figure out how to get out of it.
And I like doing that. I love doing that. There's times where I'll just let myself get into somebody's whatever, and I'm like, how am I going to get out of here?
There's times where I'm like, I just want to see where they're going.
Yeah, I'm like, let's see what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
And then there's sometimes like, I really regret doing this now. I really regret letting them do this to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, to me, that's fun. And I think too, that's another good piece of advice for people as a blue belt. Man, have fun, man.
Yeah.
Like put yourself in a position to where you know it's going to cause you some trouble, and it's going to show you how far you've progressed or how far maybe you need to to come before you get to the point to where you're really ready for your purple belt. But nobody expects shit from you as a blue too. It's kind of nice being a blue belt. Yeah. Enjoy it, because you're not expected to tap anybody out. You're just expected to be proficient at the foundational techniques of jiu-jitsu, to be pretty decent at it. But man, my expectations are high for a purple.
Yeah. And sometimes too, I feel like as the instructor, like when I'm able to roll with some of the, you know, individuals in class, that I have to let them get the better position, because then I can check if they're actually maintaining it correctly. Like, hey, you know, your weight's way too far to the right. It should be more to the left. And, you know, or they're, you know, like Art's been working on quite a few submissions from the back. So him and I have been kind of working on different ways to set it up. And there's times where when we roll, I have to let him get it, you know, because that's how he's going to get better. And then when we'll sit there, it's like, well, hey, like, what submission are you going for? It's like, I wonder if there's a way we could get, you know, transition to this. Okay, let's walk through it. And then like, I have to let him, you know, kind of process through that. And I have to also, as a good partner, tell him if I'm about to escape, why I am, and then what he could do to counter it. And I think that when you're able to help your partner out in that way, that's showing the progression in your jiu-jitsu. When you're able to walk someone through, like, okay, this is how I would defend this. I think this is what you need to do to block my defense to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that a lot. Yeah. So for somebody who is getting a little frustrated, you know, they've been a blue belt forever. I call it the blue belt. Well, I have a couple of names for it. So the first one is the blue belt vacation.
Okay.
So that's the one where you get your blue belt and you think, I've arrived, man.
Yeah.
I got some color around my waist. I don't have to train no more. So people go on the blue belt vacation,
Yeah.
and then you don't see him forever. Like this one student, I hadn't seen him for like a year. He went on a blue belt vacation. Uh, because you're spending a lot of time there, and there's some people just they get tired or bored or whatever. So you have the blue belt vacation, and then you just have the blue belt blues where you're feeling like you've just been training a lot, and maybe you feel like your game is kind of not progressing the way that you want it.
Yeah.
So let's just start with the blue belt vacation. Okay. So
Yeah.
how do you not take that route where you just like, I got my blue belt, I'm done?
You know what? It's funny because I don't feel like I ever really got that in my training. Yeah. I mean, because it was so fun, and I think, one of the things that was lucky for us is that when we were training, it was so new that you had more and more people signing up. Not that a lot of people aren't signing up now, but it was a lot of white belts. And then I feel like you had a lot of those white belts really, how we always talked about when we started, like even seeing a blue belt wasn't that often. Purple belts, there's only like a couple in town.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there was a little bit more of a, for me at least, feeling like I need to show up so that they have a good training partner. And if I'm gone, then who are they going to roll with? And luckily we had like a really good, strong team back then, but you also wanted to be part of it. For me, it was always kind of interesting when you'd see new people show up, and it still is. You see how their biomechanics are and what they're able to actually do when they first start their first class, and then how it ends up developing. And it's really a cool privilege to be part of that journey and to kind of see that. So for me, that was always kind of a little bit of my driving motivation, on the days that I knew I couldn't show up. It's like, well, I want to show up because I want to just help out who's the part of the team that's going to be there, and so it's hard to, like, if I know that there's class, and back in the day I'd take a day off and I'm at home watching TV and I'm looking at the clock, I'm like, okay, so they're probably finishing warm-ups, they're probably on this part now. It's like, it could have been a day that I was injured and needed to take a day off, but it was always so hard to be away because you just want to be with all your friends, and I think there's just, for me, always been something about making sure that I'm helping out, the team the best I can. And, that's, what we've been saying before too. It's not just about how many taps did I get today in class. It's how many people did I help out to become a better practitioner.
Yeah. And maybe that's like some good advice too. If you are looking to get better, help others.
Yes.
That's like one of the best ways that you can improve your game is through helping other people. And there's some people who will never get it, will never understand that.
Right.
But the reason why other people have gotten better is because somebody helped you. Somebody helped get you to where you're at.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it's also helping that individual as well. Just like with me, I feel like because I've taught so much since I got my black belt, I've learned so much more about jiu-jitsu. Well, it's the same is true as when you're a blue belt. You just help out a white belt and you're going to get better at jiu-jitsu. It doesn't matter if you have a black, it doesn't matter. Just through spending time helping others on the mat, you're going to improve your game as well.
Yeah, we were I'm Buddhist, and one day at the Buddhist temple they were doing a lecture, and it was about helping others, right? And the guy giving the talk was like, people, you always hear the phrase, pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. He's like, what a ridiculous phrase is that? Like, you can't physically do it, first of all, and secondly, like, there's no one who's a self-made man.
Exactly.
Like, you can't find one. They could be like, oh, well, I did this on my own. It's like, well, but you still needed other people. So when you break it down, like, no,
yeah,
you did it.
So I know I've had people say, well, so and so came over here with 2 cents in their pocket and went and did this, and I'm like, well, did they build the boat? Did they navigate it here?
Right.
Like, there's so many people that have come into my life. I mean, I have like a blessed life. So many people have come into my life, you included, who have helped me get to where I'm at in my life. And I would never sit back and say, oh, it's because of my hard work and my dedication. Yes, of course, your hard work and your dedication and all the fucking help you got along the line from all these amazing people who came into your life. Because that's how it was for me. I had so many people who came in my life who mentored me, who, you know, showed me how to be a professional in my professional life and worked with me on my research when I was doing research. And just so many people that I am so thankful of that helped get me to where I'm at in my life. And that's part of the gym. That's why I do the gym, is like a big part of the gym is because people help me. Now I want to be able to give back in some way. And that's the whole point. I think that some people, just a handful of people who've come through our doors have missed at our gym, is that that's a part of it. And it's even as a purple belt, once you get that purple, the responsibility goes up. I'd expect more out of you. You want to wear that belt around your waist, well, then you're going to also understand that I have expectations. You are getting your black belt. You're committed to this.
And you want them, you know, to me, I think because they are representing the gym, and purple belt's a big step, right? You're representing the gym even more. So you want to make sure that there's a, you know, certain amount of character there, that they do indeed represent what you're looking for out of a black belt. And, you know, how, to me, a lot of those things are like, how are they treating, you know, their fellow practitioners? How are they with everyone who they're training with in class? How are they acting outside of class? How do you, if you do compete, how do you present yourself after you've won? You know, are you gonna be an asshole and, you know, do a backflip, or are you gonna like graciously win and congratulate the other person for fighting hard? You know, there's a lot of just things like that. Like, yeah, I remember when my son Brandon for a little bit was doing jiu-jitsu when he was like really young. I think he was probably like maybe 7 or 8, right? Like, and I had him doing the kids class at Steve's because I was teaching it. And I was like, hey, like, I have to be here anyway. Like, you're just going to come with me. And he was just getting like manhandled, right? And I was also teaching at the UFC gym, so I had access to the gym. It was by my house. So him and I would go in during summer break and we'd practice. And I, you know, told him, hey, everyone's like pulling guard, or like you get into their guard and you can break it. So we just drilled him passing my guard, side control, knee on belly, mount, key lock. That was it, just over and over and over. And there came a time where he finally got to the position where he was passing someone's guard. It was just muscle memory, position. You know, I'm watching him, and he, you know, he gets the key lock. It was the first time he tapped someone out in class. He kind of like, yes, you know, I was like, I looked at him, I was like, calm it down though. Like, I'm happy that you know, got the sub, but at the same time, like, that person just got subbed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it is important to have those times where you could celebrate, you know, a victory, but at the same time, like, keep the person who just got defeated in mind as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the humility, it's a martial art too. I think you should learn. Jiu-jitsu should teach you humility. Well, I mean, how can it not? It's going to teach you. It's going to teach you humility. It's going to teach you that you know, there's always going to be somebody who's bigger, stronger, faster, which is perfectly fine. Like, man, if you're just looking to be the best, well, then find something else besides jiu-jitsu, because it isn't going to happen.
Right.
It's just not going to work like that. But yeah, no, I like what you're saying, and I think that you know, so we have very few purple belts at the gym. I like the idea of like high character people. Like, okay, so Kale was my first purple belt ever promoted. Well, I mean, he was just with me from my very first student. And man, the guy, super helpful, super supportive of everybody. He wants to see people do well. And, you know, Kale will always joke around and say, oh, I'm, you know, whatever, not a good person, or I'm this and that, you know, the other.
He's such a great individual, though.
He's one of the best people you could ever meet, and one of the most dedicated. And I mean, I can't even explain to people when he first started jiu-jitsu how much he sucked at jiu-jitsu, because we all suck at it. And so his jiu-jitsu got really, really good. And he put himself out there competing as much as he can compete. On top of that, super helpful to people, super helpful to me at the gym. You know, everything from moving, painting, whatever it is I needed his help with, man, he's never missed anything that we've done. When we put the mat together that night, he was there with us. And I mean, high character person. Spence never asks for anything, just comes to train every single, like literally the most dedicated person one of the most dedicated people I've ever met. Just comes, never misses. The only time he misses is when his family comes into town, which is like once a year. He might miss a day, then he'll make it up. He'll find a day to make it up. He's just unbelievably committed, and he'll help everybody out. What he wants everybody to do well, just like the most humble person you could ever meet. Just one of the best people on the planet. High character person. Jake, another purple belt, unbelievable wrestling. But what Jake did is he came to our school. He made a difference. He never tried to hold anything back. One of the most giving people with his knowledge.
Yeah.
He didn't have to come in and give the way that he gave. And again, competition, smashing on everybody, winning just about everything that he threw his name into that hat. He was going to come out, either winning the tournament or second place or some close. He was going to make an impact. But on top of that, the guy was so willing to give his knowledge, and so many people have benefited from him and his presence at the gym. That's also, to me, a big part of being a purple. JJ, same thing, willing to give. Whatever JJ learns, man, I always see JJ helping others.
Yeah.
Helping other people with their jiu-jitsu, wanting to share his knowledge with others. And for me, man, it's a big part of being a purple belt at least at my gym. And so, if you're that kind of person who's giving your time, giving your knowledge, you're doing well at tournaments, you're getting better, you're improving at jiu-jitsu, you show that you love it, and you show that commitment that you're going to be around all the way to that black belt, then that's how I view somebody who's ready for that purple.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So let's do the advice to people who are like in the middle of the blue belt journey and just like, man, it's just like hard to keep going here. And what do you tell those individuals?
Yeah, it's hard because a lot of it is just like you have to keep showing up. It's all time on the mat. But I think sometimes it's trying to remember why you started in the first place. Like what made you want to, after a long day of work, go to the gym at night, or before a long day of work, go to the gym in the morning. What got you out of bed and what kept you from going to bed earlier. And, we do have a lot of, it's typical with blue belts that they will kind of drop off and not see anything beyond that point, as far as belt promotions. It is a very long road. How many degrees could you get in school if you
right,
kept going that long, right? And people's lives change. You figure, man, if it takes 6 years to get a belt promotion, think about everything that's gone on in your life in 6 years. That's covered a lot of ground.
So what advice do you give? Let's just say somebody life is changing for them and they just can't get in as much, and they're not able to progress. Like, let's just say Spence never took any time off, never had any major injuries,
right,
and was just able to go. So what do you tell somebody to give somebody some encouragement? Say they're a blue belt, maybe they're going along, everything's great, and then next thing they miss 3-4 months, 6 months, and they're pushed back now. So what do you tell those individuals?
Yeah, like, to me, it's just tell them to just almost like what Steve would do with us. Like, I get it, you had to take a break, but the fact that you're back in here, to me, shows dedication that you're trying to start it back up again. And that, it's going to be pushed back a little bit, but you're still here. And sometimes, the rest doesn't take as much long of a time to get off. If you've taken 6 months off, that's not like taking 6 years off, you'll be able to kind of get back to it a little bit quicker. But just to understand, like, hey, you know what? It's not a linear journey. Not everyone's going to get promoted at the same time. And that I think the most important thing with your jiu-jitsu journey is that it's yours. Like there's people who will get promoted real fast from one belt to the other. That doesn't mean they're going to get promoted really fast from one belt to the next. I got my blue belt relatively fast. Everything else was pretty slow. And that, not to compare yourself to, and I see it all the time, not to compare yourself to other people who go to the same gym or different gyms or anything like that. Like, oh, well, my friend's training here and they must be better than me because they already are promoted at this level. Or, you can even switch that around to like, oh, I have a buddy that got promoted before I did. Well, they just promote people easy, over there. It's like, well, you know what? Let's not shit on someone else's journey,
Yeah.
That's their journey. If they, if their instructor feels like that's the belt that they were supposed to get at that given time, then that's that. And if the other instructor is the other way, that's that. And what are you here to do? Are you here to train and have fun? Or are you just here to tie a different color belt around your waist?
Exactly. I mean, to me, it's not a big deal. So what if you missed, let's just say, I don't know, something didn't go right for you in your life, or maybe you're nursing some injuries, you're taking some time off and you got to come back and your time gets pushed back. So what? Don't even look at it like that. To me, don't look at it that your time got pushed back. Just look at it like this. You're back on the mat.
Yeah.
You're back doing something that you should love doing. Don't worry about the belt.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once that time comes where it's time to get a purple belt, we have a test. We have a test at the gym where we expect students to be fairly proficient in a lot of different areas. And then, so, a couple of years in, and if you've been really consistent and I come to you and say, hey, man, it's time to start looking at that test, that's when you should really be ramping up your training, not in terms of I should be at the gym more often, but I would say that you should be working on these different areas, double checking, triple checking to make sure that, you're good and proficient in pretty much all the major positions. Now, I want to talk about for people who maybe want to go a little bit faster, want to progress quicker, some advice to somebody, not necessarily to get the belt, but they just want to progress faster.
Help teach. That's like, I think the biggest thing.
Look at Colette. So Colette is a perfect example of that. Her jiu-jitsu has gotten so much better, so much faster than most people. And I think a lot of it is because she teaches.
Yeah.
Teaches the women's class.
I think that's a huge part of it, is when you're able to teach it, and when you're able to get to the point where you're able to teach it in different styles, right? And meaning that, like, some people are more visual, some people are more audible. They're like trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm showing you a move. I have to figure out what works for you to learn the best way, and being able to kind of roll all that up into one, like we talked about earlier. It's like, you're teaching a one-on-one, like you can kind of get it dialed in pretty quick how that person needs to learn. But when you have a class of 15, 20, 30 people, you got to figure out how to explain it so that everyone, at least the majority of them, can understand it. So that way,
right. Different body types too.
Yeah. What if and there's times where you have to admit, like, what, this move probably isn't going to be your move.
Yeah.
Like,
well, we want you to learn it, but here's the best way you can learn it. And then through learning it, you can explain to them that through learning it, you're going to see if somebody tries to do it to you, how you can defend it as well.
It's like, I don't go inverted. I'm too tall. I'm old. My body doesn't move that way. Right. But I still have to know it to defend it.
Yeah. When somebody does invert, we have to understand, how do I defend that?
Yeah.
I think teaching is a great way to progress faster. Having a purpose is why I told Ernesto this, is when you're a blue belt, you should have a purpose. This goes for everybody, by the way. It's not just somebody who wants to progress faster, but let's just say you want to progress a little faster. You have to have a purpose. I'm going to the gym. I'm working on my guard passing. My guard sucks. I need to work on my guard. My open guard is horrible. I'm going to work on my open guard now. Having purpose to your training, not just going in there and having a good time, sweating. If that's all you want to do, I have no problem with that, by the way. I'm not going to tell somebody if that's all you're looking to get, you want to get in better shape, you're a good person, you treat everybody with respect, you want to come to the door and just focus on the fellowship and the love of being on the mat, and you're not so much concerned about, maybe learning a bunch of different positions and techniques. You're just going to learn what we teach on that day. I have no problem with that. You might take a little longer to progress in the belt system, and we're still going to test you. We're going to make sure that you're proficient in some of the areas that we want you to be proficient in, but I don't have an issue with that. But if you are looking to get better faster, you have to have a purpose.
Yeah. And that's, anything. I've had it
Absolutely
where I've fallen into these, kind of, training for races even, right? Like I have something coming up. I need to train specifically for this. I can't just go out and like, I'm just going to do X amount of miles today. I do need to have those days where it's just like a volume run, but then there's some days I'm like, okay, well on like today, I'm going to go running after this. I have it like mapped out, warm up 5 minutes, do a cadence drill for 2 minutes and then hit 800-meter repeats at this specific pace and then cool down and then I'm done. I have to have that structure to get, to the next workout that'll be next week, that'll be more intense. And that if I just went out and was like, I'm just gonna do 4 miles today, I could do that, but I'm not gonna get the results that I need for the next event that I have coming up.
Yeah. So it looks like on my podcast machine, we ran out of recording space. I didn't even check that, which is not a big deal because we're still recording live here. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get some more space real quick, Dave.
Yeah.
And then don't add on to anything because I want to finish up this discussion here.
So real important. Just kidding.
All right. So we are still live on YouTube. Dave, I'm going to hit the record button again, and then we're going to pick up here. And just to kind of recap, what were we talking about again? I think I know.
Yeah.
I think I know. So, but yeah, we'll just pick up here in about 5 seconds. All right. Yeah, I always tell people when you train, you got to have a purpose to your training. And I think the running example that you use is perfect. If you just went out there and just ran, it's not going to help you out with your ultra marathon races.
No, and like I said before, I think there's times where, you do need to do that. It's like sometimes when I go to jiu-jitsu, it's like, I don't need a purpose for today. I just want to roll and have fun. But there's times like if there's a tournament coming up, it's like, okay, what's kind of my strategy for the tournament? Am I good at defending these positions? And that's where putting myself in bad positions intentionally, but having a purpose for it is very beneficial.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been doing since I've been dealing with my injury, if I can tolerate, just kind of sit and just kind of watching different coaches talk about their philosophy. And I've been listening to like John Danaher. He talks about like positional training and how he forces guys to work on certain things through putting them in certain positions. And I really like that. And I think that so for a blue belt, it's just good for you just to work on your game and just to look at where you're deficient and kind of fix those problem areas. Ask for help from the coaches if you're having issues with a certain person in the gym. Maybe they have a really good half guard and they're doing something to you and you're like, man, I'm getting swept all the time. Okay, well, let's talk about how you're getting swept, and then we can show you how to get out of that.
He had a really good someone was asking him to get promoted, through jiu-jitsu. He had a really good commentary. It was show up and pay your dues.
I did hear that. It's like, how do you get a black belt?
Yeah, he laughed hysterically when he said it. So it was just like the funniest, just like, he's had to deliver that line so many times before. It was so comedic.
Now, okay, so he shit on everybody who had a black belt in a certain kind of way, because there is some truth to what he's saying, but it is because he said somebody asked him like how hard it was to get a black belt. He's not hard at all. Show up, pay your dues.
Yeah.
And but it is hard to get a black belt.
Yeah.
I think he's being a little pretentious to a certain extent, but at the same time, I think what his real point is that you can train with no purpose and get a black belt, be okay, or you could train with purpose, and you could be really freaking good. Yeah. I think that's like his main point. But he's such a dick.
But it was so funny.
It is funny. But yeah, no, he's awesome. That he's crazy. I think to some, for people out there been a blue belt for a while, man, like Dave is saying, just remember why, you've come to the gym to begin with, and help others get better, have a purpose to your own training, and man, just love jiu-jitsu, man. Yeah. Don't worry about the damn belt. Don't worry about, I love what did Hoist say about a black belt? It's like, it covers 2 inches of your ass. You got to cover the rest. I love that.
One of my other all-time favorite quotes for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah. And it makes sense because, if something goes down on the streets, hold on a second, let me go get my purple belt. Let me tie my purple. Okay, let's go. Nobody gives a shit what your belt is. Nobody cares. Any other advice for our aspiring jiu-jitsu practitioners, looking to make some gains?
Yeah, a lot of people I feel like get a lot of benefit from journaling. Writing down. I think it could be writing down the move that you learned that day. I used to do quite a bit. I had a blog that I used to write on, and it was mainly for when I would run, but I do jiu-jitsu stuff on there too. And a lot of it was just not even like, oh, this is what we went over today. It could be like, how did I feel going into class? How did I feel, leaving, who was I, just kind of like keeping track of it. So for me, sometimes it would be about technique that we went over, but a lot of times it would just be like, when I got out of it, like who I got to see. But I think, that just keeps you connected a little bit more, because then when you're not in jiu-jitsu, you're still like kind of processing jiu-jitsu. For me, I personally feel like when I started seeing that I was getting better, and I talked to the students in the morning about this a lot, I'll get a lot of, oh, I was rolling with this so-and-so the other day, and man, when I was driving home, I realized I should have been doing this. It's like, that's how you're getting better, because you're not on the mat and you're actually realizing what you could have done differently, and you're thinking about it on the way home. Think about when you didn't used to think about that stuff and you were just confused as to why you got tapped out, but now you're driving home thinking like, oh, if I did this and that.
That's a great point.
And that's where I tried to, and I haven't been as good at it. I'll take a couple of GoPros in class and record our sparring session, and I'll just upload it on YouTube and give everyone the link. It's funny how many views some of them get, because they'll watch them. They'll tell me like, oh, if I can't make it into class, which I think is great too. If they can't make it into class because they're out of town or injured, they'll watch the old sparring sessions that we have posted up. And what that's helped with, like, especially I know Stacy, her and I were talking about it, that when you first start, there's times where it's like, God, I felt like I was getting smashed on for like 8 minutes there. Then you watch the tape, you're like, oh, that was like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, it actually wasn't that bad. It just felt bad, and I think too, for some of them being able to see where they are now, then they'll watch the videos from when they started like 9 months ago. Like, oh, I have improved because I'm watching videos from November, and man, I was not doing very well.
I would love to be able to record every single class that we had, throw it up on YouTube, just for students to go back and look. I wish I had enough cameras and position. Maybe somewhere down the road I can do that, make that a long-term goal of being able. Because nowadays people say, oh, well, everybody used to try to keep their jujitsu secret. Well, there's no doing that.
No, not at all.
I have people tell me that shit all the time, like, well, I don't share this and that. I'm like, dude, whatever it is, it's on the internet.
Yeah.
Is that you can't hide anything any longer. Even, Danaher and all of his techniques, they do instructionals and they sell it. It's whether or not, do you really want to get better at something? If you want to get better at it nowadays, I think more than when it was during our time, man, just get on YouTube. You don't even got to pay for an instructional. Trust me, there's somebody on YouTube who's showing whatever, and then from there, just start trying to play around with it and have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. I like the idea of keep it playful. I've heard that from the Gracies. Keeping it playful, going to the gym, not training so hard where you're just letting yourself get beat up. Because if you're doing that, then you're not going to want to train. There's an expiration date on that type of training. You're going to get injured. But if you go in the gym and you keep it playful and you're having fun and you have purpose, you're journaling, you're doing what you're doing, you're kind of reflecting on your training sessions, man, you're going to get better and you're going to keep it fun. But if you go into the gym and it's like, I'm going to win, I got to get submissions, I got to do this and that and the other to make sure that I'm the best.
Right.
Well,
there's times where, like in the morning class, where I'll tell them like, no one's tapping anyone out today. That I'll tell them, if you want to tap out your partner, I need like 25 push-ups afterwards. That if you're just that gung-ho on submitting people, that there's days where it's like, hey, like you just need to learn how to roll for 5 minutes straight.
Yeah.
And then grab a new partner and go again. And
I like that. I like that idea. Yeah, just rolling and just getting your movements down, doing jujitsu movements. And, I see these guys are so stiff and they're so because they're trying to get the choke or they're trying to get the submission. And I'm just like, man, just relax.
Yeah.
Relax and enjoy the time on the mat. And, it's always now it's hard to do that if you don't have partners who are willing to do that with you.
Yes, very difficult.
Because I've had situations where I've tried to do that and then I'm getting attacked literally, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna fuck you up now. But anyway, we've been doing this for a little over an hour. Any other? Looks like we got disconnected here. I think I accidentally hit that. It's okay. That's all right. This is
the camera go out.
Yeah, my camera went out. Let me get here. I think that turned off. Yeah, it's all good.
Cool.
But anyway, man, I think this is a good place to end the show. Any last words about our blue belt stage?
One thing that this is another thing that I've been having the class do sometimes is like, if you want to get better, obviously try submissions that I don't want to say that you're not good at, but they don't necessarily do all the time. There's times where at the end of our sparring, you figure we're going to get 5 or 6 rounds in. I'll tell them, if you catch someone in a cross collar choke, you can't catch anyone else today in a cross collar choke. So you only get that one submission the whole day. After that, you have to do something else.
I like that too, man. I like that. That's good stuff right there. To everybody who's listening to this 7th Generation podcast, I really appreciate it. Dave, again, thank you so much for your time, man. We spent a lot of time talking. It was good to catch up. Really, really was good. Yeah. And hopefully it won't be so long before our next podcast. We'll do this again if you're down.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, maybe we can pick another topic. And but this is a good one, and I hope for our students who are listening to this, just remember, don't worry about the belts, man. Just come in, have a good time, get better at jiu-jitsu, focus on improving your technique, improving your health, your wellness. Those are the most important things that you're going to get from training. The belt, I mean, obviously, purple is a cool color. I'm not going to lie. I remember loving putting on that purple belt. But at the same time, it's not really a reflection of, everything that we want you to be as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, whatever that belt is. Like, the white belt off the street is just as important as anybody else at the gym. Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are. our gym is a place where we just want people to feel good, feel comfortable, come in, train in a healthy environment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, my brother. I appreciate you, man. Seriously, thank you for everything you do. For our gym and our community. And we'll come back and we'll do another podcast and pick a different topic here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely, brother.